Hello, good morning, friends. I'm very happy today because I am now in the midst of a lot of books and a lot of authors. And beside me is actually an author. She is also the deputy director of the UST Publishing House. And she has come up with her first book, this one. Can you see? Yeah, Slivers of the Sky. Catholic Literary Readings and Other Essays by Miss Ailil Alvarez. Ayan. Hello, Ailil.
Hello, good morning everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you sir for having me here.
Yes, when I think it was maybe 6 months ago, no? When you started posting on Facebook that you have this new book. And I'm very happy because books like this are coming out. And someone from UST doing this is very important to me. No? So maybe first you can tell us about your work as a deputy director of UST Publishing House.
Okay. Apo. Alright, as deputy director, I'm the assistant head of the entire office. I work for the office of director. My boss is Director Jean-Jacques Wigley, and together we screen manuscripts, we send them to evaluators, we make sure that they are published under a good process, and then we focus on academic and literary titles because that's the mandate of an academic publishing house. So that we try to make sure that we come up with a lot of good titles, quality titles that we hope students of tertiary level, scholars and literary enthusiasts will like. Basically, we try to come up with titles that we can nominate for National Book Awards and Gintong Aklat Awards. And thankfully, we were named Publisher of the Year for together the entire staff, our team of dedicated booksellers, copy editors, and artists try to come up with quality books that keep with the reputation of the publishing house as the publisher of choice of the country's top scholars and writers. So we hope we're doing exactly that.
Congratulations for all those accolades of the UST Publishing House. Let's go to your book now, no? Slivers of the Sky. Maybe the title. Why did you select this title?
Yeah, okay. I actually talk a little bit about the title from the preface of the book. I chose slivers because a sliver means a small piece of anything, and the sky is supposed to be a metaphor for everything that exists in the world. But because my own theoretical take on literary criticism is Catholic, the sky of course represents heaven and God and the ultimate infinity. And my type of criticism is really just one slice of the bigger truth. So I chose to call it Slivers of the Sky. And of course, it has a nice sibilance to it. The alliteration is nice, Slivers of the Sky. So it sounds nice, so I stuck with it. When people see it, they don't automatically assume that it's literary criticism. They think it's poetry or fiction. The cover also is a bit hip. The cover is done by a good friend, Paul Castillo. And I asked for this particular photo for my cover, and he generously gave it to me for free. Most photographers would ask for a fee, but he charged it to friendship, so I got it for free.
Why did you not include the term criticism in the subtitle?
In literature, I think it's more liberating to call it a reading rather than an interpretation or a criticism. Most people have a negative opinion or a negative take on criticism. They think it's about judging others' work as something that is not par to a standard. But of course, the better term would be critique, which is probably the QUE, which is just basically assessing the merit of the worth of the book. So that's what I try to do. But I think reading is a bit it's opening up literary criticism without the harshness of the term. So I think it's a friendlier way to call what I do. But I know it's very academic, not a lot of, it's not really for the general public. But I hope that if they do, they will find that it's very liberating and it's an enticing way to think about the literary works that we think that we normally would read and approach them from a Catholic perspective. So that's really my goal.
And what is the Catholic perspective?
It's something that's consistent with the teachings of the Catholic faith. So the tenets there's a launch edition in the West about Catholic literature, and my dissertation project is actually trying to imitate that, but I'm going to do it in the context of Philippine literature, but I haven't done that yet. So this is the first step to it. This book will be like my practice pieces towards that kind of longer, more specific research. But basically if it's Catholic literature, it's consistent with the teachings of the Church. What is God, or who is God in the three persons, because not all Christian sects would believe in the same thing. So we talk about the sacramental imagination, communion, and everything that we believe in as Catholics. I try to appropriate that in the readings of the text. I study a lot of texts here, so I mean a variety of texts. I have a poetry collection by a Tomasian author, that's Carlo Mardawana, so that's clairvoyance, by the UST Publishing House. Then I have a Spanish poet, that's Fray Luis de Leon. Then I studied I did a structuralist analysis of myths of the bearskin tale. So there's a Filipino version of it, but it's mostly of the Western variant, the folk tale of the bear. This is the guy who sold his soul to the devil in exchange for wealth. It is called bearskin because the deal was for the devil not to pray the Our Father and not to clean himself. So the entire form of him being a monster, because he's so hairy and untrimmed, it's a metaphor for sin. It's quite the William brothers. Brothers Grimm, I'm sorry, what am I saying? The Brothers Grimm have a version of this tale. We have a folk tale of this in Laguna, so that's what I studied here. I studied variants of that tale. Then I also have another Spanish Chilean poet, Gabriela Mistral. Then I studied a friend's young adult novel, which is explicitly Catholic. It's published by Shepherd's Voice Publications, The Lost Chronicles of Eden Champions. And I tried to, the title is Appropriating Young Adult Fantasy as Catholic Allegory, because that's exactly what you have in that novel. Then I also studied the film. Some of the other essays here aren't exactly Catholic, hence the subtitle and other essays. So I also included a feminist reading of the famed filmmaker, Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, Rashomon and Ran. He's normally studied for his intensely patriarchal subject. So I try to do a feminist take. That's really what I try to do with my own criticism. I try to bring out something that hasn't been done before. I suppose that's why I did the spirituality take, because not a lot of literary critics are writing about it. They write about politics, about gender. So I try to do spirituality because I don't think there's a lot of it in our country, which is surprising considering we're predominantly Christian and Catholic at that. And then I have a few other texts. I studied Jessica Hagedorn's Dog Eaters. It's a martial law novel, postmodern novel. And then I also studied digital texts. I studied music videos. They were poetic sequences turned into lyrical sequences. So poems by Abelardo Subido, for example, were converted into a music video by filmmaker Candela Cruz, who's a musician and poet himself. So I hope that people who get my book will not just read about Catholic readings and not just printed literature, but also we have performative texts, we have the filmic arts, and we have digital arts that are quite innovative, I think.
What are you formally studying, by the way?
I'm taking up my PhD in literature right now in the University of Santo Tomas Graduate School. So this is mostly a product of the graduate school exercise. That's really what we do in the academe. So we try to be as specific as possible in literary research, and they encourage that most students, when they do their dissertation, come up with an original angle or take that they will be remembered for. So since, as I said, not everyone is into spiritual literary theory, I hope that I will carve my own niche in this sense.
Okay. The skill that you are applying in these readings requires higher learning. But would you agree with me that an ordinary person, a man of the street, can also somehow do some kind of a critique
Absolutely.
of things you see?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. I mean, we all do forms of critique in everything in our everyday conversations, and whenever we rant on Facebook about, or we rave on Twitter about a movie we've seen, a play we've watched, a soundtrack of a movie, or music from a band that we really really love. That's criticism, because criticism or critique, the more positive way of looking at it, is really just assessing the merits of art. So anybody with an appreciation for the technicalities of beauty as seen in the art forms really will be able to make his or her own brand of criticism. I just formalized it because I am a PhD student and I'm working towards a doctoral degree. But absolutely anybody can create, maybe not publish a book of this this academic quality, but something of their own brand. Absolutely.
Although sometimes I notice that they base it mostly on opinion and sometimes uninformed. What would you recommend so that they can improve on their homemade?
I love your choice of words, sir. Uninformed seems to about sum it all up. It's very spot on. Yeah, I think the only solution for that is to keep reading other kinds of critiques. I mean, practice makes perfect, and we expose ourselves to the things we want to get better in or want to get better at. So I think the only way for them to write informed kinds of critiques, even if it's just on social media or on their blogs, the best way to do it is to read the best kinds of essays and the best kinds of reviews that are available, whether in newspapers or magazines or journals or just published online. That's the only way they can learn from the best. If you want to write like the best, you have to read the best of what's out there. So
You know what you did here is to taste or to savor texts and entertainment, no? Savor it and really get more meaning out of those texts. Right?
we hope so.
Yes.
That was the plan.
Yes, and thank you for coming up with this book. I hope your example can also be done by other scholars and also by the common person, that they can get the best of what's out there, the entertainment, the readings, anything
hope
that,
so
even
too.
Facebook.
Well, there are a few writers who are known for that niche. Like they have a deep-seated Catholic spirituality, and it shows in all of their film reviews and TV reviews. My professor in Catholic literature, Lito Zulueta, who's Philippine Pen Secretary General and lifestyle editor of the arts and books section of the Philippine Daily Inquirer, is completely Catholic. Like all of his own approaches to the news events that he covers and all of the plays that he places and plays that he's sent to cover, because he does mostly arts and culture stuff. So he normally would anchor all of his interpretations to the Catholic perspective. But yeah, you are correct, sir. There's not a lot of us writing about it, especially in the field of literary criticism. So I do hope that people would keep on writing about their faith as well, because if you do love your faith, it shows in everything that you do.
Yes, I would like to take note of what you said earlier, that our country is predominantly Catholic. So
Large portion of it.
large portion, and maybe if they will do more of what you have done here, we'll have a greater understanding even of our own faith, our own religion. Not just of academics, not just of savoring texts and readings, but understanding the faith more.
Correct. And that's actually what literature does. I mean, I teach Catholic literature also to literature seniors at USTAB. So I keep telling them that Tolkien was a completely Catholic writer. He's a cradle Catholic, profoundly Catholic. He said so in his letters to C.S. Lewis, his best friend, and of course those two writers wrote the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Chronicles of Narnia respectively. And people just read them as good fantasy novels, but they're actually profoundly Catholic works of fiction. And the Catholic critic Joseph Pierce would always say, if you market the message of God as a sermon, nobody would come. But if you package it as fantasy and you say, I'm holding a lecture on the Lord of the Rings, 100 people will come to the lecture. It's all a matter of presentation, the faith. And literature teaches us the deepest, profoundest truths of the universe, and there's no better way to approach the faith. I mean, of course, theology is very important. It's the queen of all the sciences, but it is only through literature that the imagination is fueled and faith is fired, I think. So that's a great tagline for Catholic Lit. One author thought of it, faith fueled by fiction, something like that. That's Catholic literature, faith fueled by fiction. Even fiction is truth based on subjects that are not true. So it's based on truth even though it's not true. But you get the bigger picture instead of just the particulars of the nuggets of faith. I think you get them better in literature. So my favorite thing about being a critic is, as you said, sir, I savor the text. So even though criticism for many people is like a negative encounter, like they have this, ooh, you're scary, you're a critic, because you keep judging people. I mean, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's just experiencing literature and falling in love with it and then writing about it. That's really my project.
And another term, I suppose, would be analysis, no?
Analysis, absolutely.
Yes.
High school students do it all the time. They have first criticism would be, what's your opinion on the first book that you've read, or you write your book report, or well, how did my summer vacation go? I mean, those are all critiques. Those are all forms of criticism.
Now, maybe for the final thought of our conversation, faith fueled by fiction.
Yeah.
And
I cannot claim credit to that though.
Yes.
Someone wrote about it and used it as a tagline for
Yes.
for a website. So disclaimer, I don't want to be
No, but-
copyright infringement intended.
What I'm interested is how would you integrate that tagline with Slivers of the Sky, Catholic literary readings and other essays? How would you link the two?
I hope that my book will be the bridge that would lead people towards faith-inspired love of literature. So I hope that's it.
I see. Okay, so invite our friends to purchase the book.
All right. With gratitude to Mr. Cumagun. And you can get copies of Slivers of the Sky for 350 pesos. It will be available soon at all national bookstore outlets. But for now, you can get them at the UST Publishing House bookstore. So you can call us at 731-3522 or look us up on Facebook and place an order there. Our address is facebook.com/UST Publishing House.
Ailil, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for having me. It's a pleasure. And I'm honored to be your guest. Thank you.